Okay, checking 1, 2, 3. This is another episode of Avid19, Avid Media Composer in the days of COVID. Today, we're going to start pretty basically and hopefully not get off on too many tangents. Basically, looking at source material in the source window in Avid Media Composer, and a little bit on bins. So this episode is called Source, of course. So I have a bunch of bins here. I have like a convoluted Avid project. You see the bin browser over on the left, which is actually officially called the bin container. And my background is purple, and I have a lot of bins and a lot of stuff in here. This project's a big hodgepodge from courses and different assignments, basically for teaching and demo purposes. But I just want to point out the icons in the project. We essentially are seeing folders and these little drawers. The drawers are Avid bins, and everything in an Avid project goes through the bin. Everything is the backups, everything is saved via bins. So be aware of that. More on that later. The folder icons here are optional for organizational purposes. So depending on how complicated your project is, you might have folders in addition to bins, but they're not the same thing. The bin icon in this version of Avid Media Composer looks like a little drawer. So I double click this bin called Source, of course. It loads. The drawer is open. I can right click to close it, close the selected bin. But be aware that the bins are different than the folders. And I'll drill down more on the significance of bins later. Like any Avid project or any editing project, there's no media in the project itself, even though this project clocks in at 1.5 gigabytes. It's just simply there's a lot of metadata and sequences and stuff like that. So I double click this bin, and you can see the icons in the bin. So the bin's open here. It's attached to the bin container. And we have mostly what are called clips or master clips, to use Avid Media Composer terminology. These have a blue tag, meaning they're on local storage. More on that later. This one has no tag because it's actually media offline. Then we have 2 sequences in this particular bin. So the sequence icon, and make a note of this, it looks like 3 frames. It's a little hard to, it's a little subtle for those of you new to Avid Media Composer. Hopefully they'll change that icon at a future date. So there's 2 sequences, and essentially you double click a clip and it will load into the source monitor by default. You double click a sequence. This is a string out of everything in this bin, and you'll see this will load in the record monitor. You can think of this as the record monitor or the sequence monitor. And I have a playhead over here, and it tracks the playhead in the timeline for that sequence. I have a green playhead over under the source window, the source monitor, and that tracks whatever's loaded into the source monitor. There's no sequence for the source monitor. However, there is a hidden sequence, a hidden timeline rather, for the source monitor. More on that later. The composer window itself is one window broken into source and record. So the source and record are not separate like maybe other editing systems. And you can activate either source or record by simply clicking on the monitor. The bar underneath turns slightly lighter colored. Left, right, left, right. Also, I almost forgot, you can also do that by hitting escape on the keyboard. So source, green, record, blue, source, record, source, record. Green is for source, blue is for record, and the track panels down here in the timeline reflect that. More on the track panels later, and more on the color metaphor later. Well, the color metaphor is something I advocated to come over from Avid Symphony, so that it was clearer that the track panels on the left belong to the source window, and of course the track panels on the right belong to the sequence. Now, if you have a sequence loaded, it's not the sequence you want to be looking at, because maybe you have more than one sequence, which you will as you work on more complicated projects. I've just double clicked this. Now I have another sequence loaded, not the one I was looking at before. You can say, hey, I don't want to see that sequence. There's a little twirly down window, twirly down icon here on the upper right, and you can see these little twirl down triangles for time code, and there's one for the source. You see the name of the sequence, and I could go back to the string out sequence. So even so, though I'm not seeing sequences tabbed down here in the timeline, I can navigate back and forth to multiple sequences that way, or I can simply clear the monitor. Sequence went away. The track panels for the sequence went away. Over here on the left, same thing. If I had other clips I'd been looking at, I'm going to select a bunch here, using Shift to select a bunch of stuff, and just drag those 9 clips into the source window, and you'll see the list here. And so this is handy if you just want to load up the source window with some source clips, and you can look at the twirl down here and see what you've been looking at in alphabetical order. Or, pro tip, if you hold down Option, you can look at everything in chronological order, which will become important to you when you're like, hey, what was the last clip I was looking at before the one I'm looking at now? Oh, it was this one. So Option to change the behavior of the little twirl down order right there. Now I'm just going to clear the monitor for the source and clear the menu. So normally what you do when you start looking at stuff, you're over here in the bin. Now the bin itself you can arrange in what's called text view, or you can think of that as list view, which is the way things work on the Mac Finder. Then you have frame view, which would be like icon view, and then you have something called script view. So in list view or text view, you can change the columns here, and I'm not going to get into all that. You can add columns. You can right click up here and choose columns, add custom columns. You can save the view. There's a little italicized window here, and you can see I've saved a bunch of views in my user settings, and that's under text view. Think of it as list view. Then you can go to frame view and see your pictures, and now we're looking at frames for the different clips. We also have what was added in 2019, something called the bin browser or the bin navigator or something. And this would be handy if you have a lot of clips and you're like, what's this one over here? That's a sequence. I have my bins just be showing the icons and the clip border colors, by the way. That's a user setting. We can talk more about that later. So this is kind of fun. It might get in the way. And it's actually officially called the bin map. So you can hide that bin map if you want to get it out of your way. And now we're just looking at the pictures. And this is another way you can look at clips, by the way. For one thing, if you go to frame view, you can see if you have media. Because essentially, the frames in Media Composer are windows onto the footage, onto your media. So this one has media offline, hence there's no picture. And there's no thumbnail, and there's no save thumbnail. You're just looking at the actual media. And so that means I can click on this clip, and I can use the navigational keys 1, 2, 3, and 4 for 10 frames forward, 2. I'm going 10 frames forward, 1, 10 frames back, 4, 1 frame forward, 3, 1 frame back, home and end. Those work. And simply I'm going to hit home and hitting JKL, in this case L. You will be able to play the clip, and you should be able to hear it too, assuming my speakers are set to external headphones.
That way, ma'am.
So anyway, JKL are navigational tools, whether you're an Avid Media Composer or Adobe Premiere Pro. Most editing systems use JKL. J is backwards, L is forwards. And then K and L will slow-mo forward. K and J will slow-mo backward.
And you're one of them.
Now, so you can do all that in the bin, and when you stop, you actually change what's called the representative frame. If I did Command A will select all of these. Command A is going to be one of those universal shortcuts you use whether you're in Avid or other applications. So Command A, they're all selected. Command Shift A deselects. Command A selects everything, and then if I hit the 2 key, I can advance everything 10 frames forward like that and change all the representative frames, or hit the home button, toggle them back, toggle them to the end, home end. So I'm going to put them back at the home position and then click one of these. So this all holds true for when you're looking at stuff. In the source window, I double click the clip and it loads into the source window. You could think of that as the clip window if you want. Hit the home button, works. Hit the end button, works. Home. Hit the two key, 10 frames forward. Holding the 2 key, holding the 2 key, holding the 2 key. 1 key, 10 frames backwards. L. Get to some part where he's saying something. J. What's he saying? Can you read lips backwards? Can you interpret sound backwards, that is? So J, K, L are handy. And that all works in the source window, the clip monitor, if you want to think of it as the clip monitor, as it does in the bin in frame view. So I'm going to put this back into list view and step back for a second and talk about track panels. Okay, a couple things to be aware of when you are clicking in a bin and loading clips in the source window. I see people do this all the time. Now my particular clips have color swatch here. They're color coded for various reasons. Now for some reason my eye goes to the color swatch, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But the main thing is you want to click make sure you're clicking the clip icon. If you click over here in the name, which sometimes people do, the system thinks you're trying to retitle or rename the clip. So be aware of where you're clicking, and like a lot of applications, you always have to be aware of which window is active and things like that. So just be aware of these icons. Now the master clip icon looks like a little piece of film frame, and I double click that and load that into the source window. If you click on the 3-frame icon, again, that is a sequence, and by default that is going to load. So this is the string out sequence. I'm going to double click that puppy, and that by default loads into the record window. Again, you might want to think of that as the sequence window, and the timeline playhead moves with the timeline playhead under the record window. And I'm grabbing the playhead down here in the timeline because I don't have any smart tool things turned on over here, and more on that later. At any rate, so that's the way it works. Sequences go into the record window, double click, and clips by default will load into the source window. Now you can, if you needed to edit this sequence into this sequence, you can drag a sequence against its will into the source window. And why would you want to do that? Well, just as I said, maybe you're trying to combine scenes. So now I've located a sequence. Now, in addition to acknowledging the icons in the bin, you can see the icon show up in the composer window here, and the name of the sequence that's loaded versus the sequence over there versus the clip that gets loaded, clip icon. Again, the blue swath there is indicating that this clip is on local storage. Now, I am in list view, or Avid calls it text view, and these are the icons you use to navigate. And by the way, you'll see them arranged like this if your bin is big enough. Mine is kind of truncated down, so it's small, so you haven't made it bigger. Now you're seeing all three, and so that's the way that's working. Now this is a media offline, I believe a duplicate of this clip, and it's a duplicate of the clip but not the media, and I'm just going to double click it and I can load that even though there's no media. It's indicating that it did have 3 tracks, and if I decide to delete this, which I'm going to, you can see what I get for deletion. I can delete 1 master clip. So remember that, 1 master clip. And the master clip is just the text information, the blueprint information for the clip, not any media. The media was already deleted, so all I have is the metadata, essentially the blueprint information. So when I delete this, didn't really free up a lot of room. This clip still has media, and you'll notice when I hit delete on this clip, I get a different dialog box slightly, and it's asking me if I want to delete the master clip or clips and 3 associated media files. So you, if you were trying to get rid of media but keep the clip information because maybe you're going to re-import or recapture that media later on, you would not want to select this. But this is just to show you how Avid deals with its media. It takes the video and the audio files and splits them out, atomizes them, so to speak. And that actually makes the system more efficient in certain ways. But be aware of that. You've got the master clip and then video A1, A2, and you have 3 associated media files. So I'm not going to delete that. Sequence, interestingly, is there's no media actually that the sequence itself links to. So if I was going to delete a sequence, you see that I can delete the sequence and I don't have any media options, because a sequence is just a sequence of decisions saying, okay, I want you to show me this, this, and this from some master clip out there in a bin, and that's it. So be aware of that in the bin. All right. So we got our string out, we have our clip, we have our list of clips. If you have multiple clips, as I said before, just drag and drop those. You'll see the list right here of what you've been looking at, and the same thing with multiple sequences over here. A couple things about figuring out where bins live inside projects, and this is just a universal thing. It seems like every application has a version of reveal file or show in Finder. If I was going to reveal the media for this particular clip right here, I could right click and reveal file, and this calls up where the media lives in this folder. And notice it picked 3 files, and one is 42.5 megabytes. The other 2 are smaller, 4.7. So those are the 2 audio tracks and the 1 video track. So that's where the media lives. The master clip is a shortcut to your media. When you're working in any editing system, you assume that, hey, I double click this and I see the media, right? There's the guy, there's the audio. Well, that's only because these clips are looking at media that's somewhere else. They're basically a shortcut or an alias to wherever your media lives. Our media is managed by Avid, so it lives in a specific folder, and more on that later. So, and because we have 3 files in the case of this clip, a right click, reveal file, and it selects 3 files. So that's why when you see that delete dialog box, you're prompted to delete 3 media files. There's actually 3 separate media files, 2 for audio, 1 for video. So keep that in mind when you're working in the Media Composer. The other thing that's interesting, so master clips have that because there's associated media files. Subclips and things like sequences have no media specifically that they are responsible for as far as where the media originates from. So if you reveal file on that, you're not going to get any results. But interestingly, the bin file itself, because Avid uses the bin files as separate operators and independent operators, and because my project is really big over here, like I said, it's 1.5 gigabytes. I'm only looking at 1 bin, so all it has to do is read, write, and save this 1 bin that's open. So the drawer's open. Now, if I want to figure out where this bin lives and move it and back up the bin by itself, I can right-click and reveal file on a bin, and it takes me to the bin, and the bin ends in AVB for Avid bin. And where's that bin living? It's in this folder, which is in that folder, which is in this project, and more on the projects later. But just be aware of reveal file to figure out where stuff is living, and think of the bins as independent files that live in an Avid project that you can grab and move and share with other projects, which is essentially what I did with this big project. I've moved bins from different assignments and from different Avid classes. The other thing about the bins being independent operators, if you are looking at a clip like this one, and you've got your sequence over here, and you're working away, and you're like, yeah, I just want to get this bin out of my way, I'm going to hit the X here and close it. You might be, whoa, wait a second. What the hell just happened? I was editing, everything was hunky-dory, and now I don't see anything. Well, because the bins are independent operators, you put the bin away, it closes out almost like it's its own separate little project. It's not, but be aware that will happen. So this was the bin I was looking at, and there's the string out using the pull down. And the last clip I was looking at, these are in alphabetical order, so I'm going to hold down Option and go in chronological order, and I was looking at that clip. Okay, so that's a little bit about what you're looking at in a bin and how the bins work. So I actually am I'm just gonna open this bin that's called Source of Course and just show you a little bit more about source clips. By the way, when I double click, I have my bin set up to tab. So I double click that and I get Source of Course loaded up here. The lost bin is back here in this tab. I've color coded the bins, so the background is red in the Source of Course bin, and that bleeds over into the tabs. So 2 bins are open currently. You can also see which bins are open by looking at the Windows pull down here. So there's the lost bin versus the source bin, and then you can also get a little list of bins here, this little twirl down like that. So if you had multiple bins open, such as this bin, okay, this bin's open, and you can twirl down and navigate your various bins that way. So that's what's going on with the bin tabs. This bin has some additional types of clips in it and additional icons to be aware of. And so I have some sequences. I have some audio only master clips right there. There's a little waveform. Allegedly, the legend is the waveform spells out a word or enunciates a word that begins with F and ends in CK. That's TBD. So that's the waveform or the clip icon for an audio only clip. You can see I have the tracks right here, and there's A1, A2. So yes, that's audio only. In other words, in this case, it's music. Voila, and there's no image there in the source window. Okay, that is a music clip. All right, so I double click that, loaded that. Now I have this interview with the captain here, and I double click the captain, I load the captain, I look at the captain, I see the captain. If I come over here and double click a title, I see the title and I hear the title. Well, there's nothing to hear. And likewise in the bin, it's a video 1 track only for that clip. This frog is MOS, meaning mit out sound. Sprechen Sie Deutsch. Allegedly, that goes back to the old German directors when they came over from Deutschland to make American movies and steal our jobs. Anyway, so there's the frog MOS video track only. And here's another one. I'll come back to Judy Dibbins. Judy Dibbins, interestingly, over here, this is an interview. I have V1, A1, A8. So she actually has 8 audio tracks, which means if I hit delete, you would see, unlike the other master clip that had 3 associated files, she has 1 video track, 8 audio tracks. That equals 9. So that's what's going on there if you were going to delete the media or delete both for some reason. The reason why I'm telling you all this is it's sort of like what you see is what you get. When you double click a clip, and I'm going to put away this string out sequence, clear the monitor for now, and you load it in the source monitor. Not only are you seeing something or hearing something, you get a track panel down here way in the left hand of the timeline. So notice I have the frog, and the frog had what? Only 1 video track. The title, Cool Man, is video only, V1, and I get V1. If I double click the captain, I've got what? V1, A1, A2, and I get V1, A1, A2 over here. The green bar is related to the green track panels. So what's this telling you? It's showing you what you can edit with, because those are the tracks. It doesn't just arbitrarily give you a bunch of track panels. The track panels are contingent on what media is associated with this master clip. And in this case, the captain has a lavalier mic on, and there is a boom microphone, shotgun somewhere.
Focus on this lane is what we call tactical combat casualty.
So I can listen to him. I can mute one of the tracks. M is for mute.
Focus on this lane.
So that sounds a little cleaner to me. So you can,
combat casualty.
with the track panels, you can monitor. You also have a little, what still looks like a 4x3 Sony Trinitron icon for what would be an eyeball in Premiere. In Premiere, you wouldn't have the eyeballs for the source side, but you do in Avid. If you loaded a sequence in the source, you can control what you're looking at. In this case, it's only one track, but you might accidentally turn that off and be calling tech support.
One of the main focuses on this lane.
Like, where the hell did our guy go? What's going on? So you might inadvertently hit that, and he goes away. So you can use these to control what you're looking at. You can also use these to control what you edit. Now, if you're going to edit from the source window, the source monitor, and start a new sequence, you can pick and choose the tracks you want to come over by selecting the fatter panel here, the fatter section that says V1, A1, A2. So everything on the left is for monitoring. Everything on the right is for editing. And what you see is what you get. So with Judy Dibbins, because she has one video track and 8 audio tracks, if I double click her clip icon, you can see I get V1 and all the audio tracks over here. And you can see I've muted a bunch of them because most of them are just empty tracks that the particular file-based camera recorded anyway, even though there were no inputs going to those tracks. And so it came in with a bunch of empty tracks. If you want to confirm that, it's a little hard to do by just simply listening, but you can do something called toggle the timeline. And I toggle over and I suddenly get a timeline for the source window. And if I turn on the waveforms here by clicking them individually or option clicking so they all go on for all the tracks, you can see there's really no waveforms for A3 through A8. But maybe there's the producer asking a question down here. Maybe I will unmute him or her and listen to that.
Then last year,
really nothing there. There's some tips and tricks as far as like making these tracks bigger and smaller, but I'm not going to get sidebarred on that. So toggle the timeline, be aware of that. If you want to look at the waveform for whatever is in your source window. So I double click Judy Dibbins, she loads, all her tracks come over. Rods and Cones, something from Blue Man Group, I believe. I just get A1, A2. Ouch, that's kind of loud. If you wanted to see the waveform for that, of course, you don't have any. The other thing about toggling the timeline, you don't have a waveform here in your source window, unlike Premiere. Maybe that will be coming someday. Avid's made a lot of changes to the interface, such as having this paneled UI. But for now, you got to toggle the timeline and turn on the waveform down here, and you can see the waveform where things are happening for the music. So right here is where things go into a little lull, versus say over here. All right, so that's toggling the timeline, looking at clips. Now, a couple things, other things about what this particular bin has to show you as far as icons. Again, we have a couple of sequences. Splice is nice as a random sequence. I, again, double-click the 3-frame icon there, and I get the sequence loading up over here. This is something about a job I had at Master Control at WGBY in Springfield. And I double click that sequence. There's 16 track panels of video and a bunch of track panels of audio. So I get all those blue track panels on the right, and Command A, I select them all versus what's on the left, the green track panels. If I put away the clip in the source window, clear out the source window in other words, you'll notice that the track panels down the timeline for the source, the green track panels disappear entirely. And the same holds true for the timeline, but the sequence rather. But obviously that's a little more apparent because you have an entire sequence to look at. I basically have the original sequence here. That's why it's all red. The media is offline. Then I exported it and re-imported it and put the imported track up in the upper section so I could say, hey, look, I was using some luminance key here when I edited this for real in 1998 at the main film television workshops. So that's why this particular sequence looks like that versus Splice is nice versus whatever RC is. RC is just a random collection of clips. And again, double clicking the sequence icon, the 3 frames, loads the sequence. Double clicking a clip icon loads the clip into the source. And if you wanted to edit a sequence into a sequence, you could drag a sequence into the source window and look at the sequence and then use part of it for whatever purposes. So that's about it as far as looking at clips. Also, by the way, notice when I load a sequence, this one has a lot of tracks, as you saw it when it was loaded over here, and you can see they all show up green over on the left side, over on that part of the timeline. So be aware of what you're loading, what you're looking at. We'll talk about editing in the next section. You pick and choose what you want, but you also have to pick and choose which tracks you want to come over. So you can make that decision by either highlighting or deselecting the tracks you don't want. And I'll get more into that when we get into editing. At any rate, this was the source of course demo for Avid19, Avid in the age of COVID. As always, we'll fix this in post. Oh wait, we're in post.